Liberal leadership candidates face off in Thunder Bay. Another delay in the River Street reconstruction. And the Maritimes braces for Hurricane Lee. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Mitchell Ringos. Healthcare, natural resources, and affordable housing. Those were some of the key topics at last night's Ontario Liberal leadership debate. The five hopefuls shared the stage for the very first time on the Lakehead University campus as they look to rebuild the party that currently holds just 9 seats at Queen's Park. Joe Sadowski was there and tells us what was said.
The first question that kicked off the debate was what the candidates would do to benefit Northern Ontario and the city of Thunder Bay if elected. Crombie, Shue, and Erskine-Smith all mentioned how the mining industry and agricultural potential in our region is untapped by the provincial government.
And create jobs in growing sectors like mining and forestry, like in tourism and advanced manufacturing to bring in investment and create jobs.
Why haven't we been doing the research and development to find out new uses for the fibers that we grow in the north? It's something that we should be constantly doing.
Not only leadership to tap into the potential, but leadership to make sure that there's real economic reconciliation as part of that.
Adil Shamji said there won't be any economic prosperity in the north without reconciliation with the First Nations communities.
Including addressing the Ring of Fire and making sure that it is done in a manner that is consultative with First Nations people.
Yasir Naqvi made a promise that if he's elected, he would visit Northern Ontario once every quarter.
That's the only way we can cover the ground in this great Northern West so that we can come up with ideas around how do we get you more family doctors and nurses and other important healthcare services that you need.
On the topic of provincial health care, Crombie shared her thoughts on the Ford government's Bill 124, and Naqvi was adamant about getting international doctors and nurses eligible to practice in Canada.
If I were elected premiers, repeal Bill 124. It is simply wrong. Our healthcare professionals deserve a fair wage.
We have to license internationally trained professionals. Over 60% of them in this province do not get to practice in their own profession.
And finally, the housing crisis was addressed.
I think that we should be legislating the right to build higher density and even higher density around transit hubs.
And lastly, we need to make sure we treat housing as a home first and an investment second. And it requires provincial leadership.
You know, he said that housing should be a home first and not an investment. I'm going to take that even further and say that housing should be a human right.
The next Liberal leadership debate will be held on the 1st of October in Stratford, Ontario, and the ultimate decision of the new Liberal provincial leader will be announced on December 2nd. Joe Sadowski, TBT News.
The River Street reconstruction project has been delayed once again. It was supposed to reopen in mid-September, but this latest delay will push back the timeline another 2 weeks. But as Vasilios Bellos tells us, the city hasn't provided a clear answer about what the issue actually is.
The reopening of River Street has been pushed back once again, but the city's project engineer insists he's confident the work should finally be done by the end of the month.
We're going to be pouring concrete next week, so curb and gutter and sidewalk. Guide rails also going in probably today or tomorrow. A week after that, they should be paving, and then the road should be open, so we've got about 2 more weeks left here.
The stretch has been closed for the last 16 months, since May of last year, after one of the twin culverts collapsed. The construction timeline has been pushed back many times since. The bridge is certainly taking shape, with the new culvert expected to be far more resilient, with an estimated lifespan of 75 years. Vogrig is disappointed with this latest delay, but was evasive when asked about what caused it.
For one reason or another, now things are picked up and going strong again, so that's good. It's too bad we lost a couple weeks though.
Can you give more details on one thing or another there?
Just things seem to slow down. So,
the total cost of the project was estimated at $2.5 million, though there's no word yet on how all of the delays may have affected the price tag.
Utilities and relocation of utilities and support of utilities. So some of those items took longer than expected. How we had the project planned out in the timelines, maybe we underestimated the amount of time it would take to complete. It was quite a complex project.
The River Street Bridge is now expected the week of the 25th. Vasilios Bellos, TBT News.
The local cruise ship season is wrapped up for the year. After the Viking Polaris pulled out of the port of Thunder Bay on Wednesday, the city's tourism manager says this year was even more successful than last. And as Jessica Clement reports, there's already excitement brewing for 2024.
The Viking Polaris left Thunder Bay's port Wednesday evening, marking the end of what tourism manager Paul Pepe says was a very successful cruise ship season.
Overall, I think it was probably our record season, to my knowledge, in terms of the number of vessels visiting the city, and the feedback from guests and the ships themselves was very positive. They really enjoyed their time here.
Thunder Bay saw 14 visits from 4 different vessels, carrying a total of about 5,300 passengers. The port hosted ships for 3 turnaround stops, where one group of passengers disembarks and is replaced by new tourists. Tourism staff will now spend the next few weeks tabulating the economic impact.
We anticipate it'll be somewhere in the area of, from a vessel and passenger spend perspective, just probably in the area of about between $3 and $4 million. And that doesn't include sort of the capital improvements and the economic impacts the capital improvements have with the local contractors. When those numbers do come in, it'll definitely show a pretty positive impact on the community.
Pepe says the success can be attributed to partnerships.
For the City of Thunder Bay, the Parks and Open Spaces Department that operates the terminal, our partners at Embark Port Services, the private sector partner handling all the vessel logistics and shore excursions, all the attractions, our transportation providers, and that's really what it comes down to. The success of cruising comes down to great partnerships.
Pepe is already excited for the 2024 cruise ship season, but Thunder Bay will welcome 24 ships, including 2 new vessels.
We have Ponant, a French company that's going to be bringing in one of their vessels for one turnaround and several day stops. And then we have Pearl Seas Cruises with their ship, the Pearl Mist. And that'll be its first time in Lake Superior, and it's first time visiting us as well. It's going to be another busy year for us next year, and we're really excited by the growth potential that it offers.
Jessica Clement, TBT News.
With Ontario's healthcare system facing continued staffing shortages, advocates say now is the time for the province to take urgent action to prevent further impacts.
As a public, we have to pour on the pressure to this government to force them to take action to address this, or we are going to start to lose even more local hospitals.
Staffing issues have forced temporary closures of emergency rooms across the province over the last several months, including here in northwestern Ontario. The Ministry of Health has said it's taking steps to grow the hospital workforce. Amid those staffing challenges, the fall also brings the start of flu and respiratory virus season. Siobhan Morris reports on the province's push to keep Ontarians healthy. That includes access to the latest COVID-19 booster vaccine.
It's become as much a part of September as back to school and falling leaves.
COVID continues to circulate in Ontario. That's clear. We're seeing an increase in hospitalizations, increase in laboratory tests being positive.
Now with a freshened defense, a just-approved booster to tackle the XBB variant.
I'm happy to say Ontario will be receiving roughly 300,000 doses in the coming days, and we'll distribute those rapidly to our highest risk settings, such as our long-term care settings, retirement homes, hospitals, elder care lodges.
With more Ontarians able to get their shots through October and November.
Influenza, our old friend, is still here, as well as viruses like RSV.
There's also a new RSV vaccine for seniors. Ontario will start offering it to vulnerable people over 60. No protection yet for kids who were hit hard by RSV last fall and winter. The influenza season winding down in the southern hemisphere shows that this year's flu shot is a good match for the circulating strain. That shot can be taken at the same time as the COVID booster.
Getting these vaccines will help to prevent that serious illness. And that's what I would say for people who are really wondering, do I really need it? Well, you really don't want to get very sick from these viruses.
You can get vaccinated at a doctor's office, public health clinic, or a pharmacy. The province is weighing letting pharmacists administer RSV vaccines too.
If we can raise immunization rates and work with our colleagues in the public health units, nurses, and primary care, we'll be successful in terms of warding off some of the threats coming up this fall.
There are reminders from doctors to wash your hands, stay home if you're sick, and consider a mask if getting sick would be especially hard on you.
It is a tool that works at an individual level to help protect individuals, but you will not be seeing or hearing mandates.
Though Moore expects more hospitals to require masks as cases climb.
Siobhan Morris, CTV News.
Local climate activists are demanding the federal government do more to reduce the use of fossil fuels and fight against climate change. They rallied in front of Minister Patty Hajdu's office today as part of the Global Fridays for Future movement.
12 o'clock strike, we're going to strike around the clock tonight.
Chanting and waving their signs, more than 100 people came out to try the pressure to the Trudeau government to act more quickly as deadly wildfires and destructive storms become more and more frequent. Hajdu was at her office and spoke to the protesters, but they say they need action, not words, from Ottawa.
We need you to do something.
I think Patty is a sincere person. I think there's a will to do something, but ultimately her government is completely captured by the fossil fuel industry. They won't do anything that makes the fossil fuel companies really uncomfortable, and we have to change that if we're going to solve climate change.
We have a leader of the opposition that's promising to axe the tax, as he's calling it, reduce price on pollution, actually eliminate it, and stop that progress that we're seeing. Our emissions are going down. We've seen over the last 2 years a significant reduction in our emissions, and people are making that transition to power that's cleaner and safer for all of us. So this is a welcome support.
Similar climate protests are happening around the world today and over the weekend, about 2 months ahead of the UN's COP28 climate summit. North Caribou Lake First Nation is the latest remote community to celebrate the end of a dependence on diesel power. The community was connected to the provincial power grid last October and formally celebrated the milestone yesterday. Lee Noonan was there.
The North Caribou Lake substation now connects the First Nation to Ontario's power grid through the Wataynikaneyap power transmission line. It also serves as a connection point for communities further to the north. Following a blessing of the substation, the community celebrated the beginning of a new era of reliable energy.
I'm very excited and I was looking forward to this day. It has been a long time coming.
Chief Cornelius Benson says the old diesel generating station was unreliable, causing frequent outages, and didn't have the capacity to meet the community's existing needs, let alone support any new growth.
Now, since we have this main grid, we can upgrade more of our facilities and the things that we use in our community.
And then last but not least, Ontario's Energy Minister Todd Smith was among the many dignitaries at the event. He calls progress on the Watay grid an extraordinary achievement.
1,800 kilometers of transmission line making its way through the tundra and the forests in northwestern Ontario, and that work being done 12 months a year in the middle of winter in very, very harsh conditions, and then a lot of the work being done during the pandemic as well. It is quite an accomplishment.
The celebration was particularly poignant for Wataynikaneyap CEO Margaret Kennequinash.
The need for reliable energy has been something that our community has been talking about for quite a long time. So I'm very happy to be home because this is my home community and to celebrate with the community members. It's always good to build something, a foundation for our future generation, because without it, where is our little ones going to be? And we got to be visionaries in this, in anything that we do.
Kennequinash hopes to have as many as 5 communities electrified this fall. The next will be Wawa-Kapiwin First Nation, which is celebrating their electrification on September 29th. Lee Noonan, TBT News.
Students from Dennis Franklin Cromartie High School continue to participate in events designed to help them get to know the city, which culminates with tomorrow's Wake the Giant Music Festival. Today, they took part in what's known as the DFC Experience, with a number of workshops delivered by subject matter experts from a variety of different fields. They include t-shirt making, hoop dancing, and baking lessons from a Top Chef Canada contestant. Afterwards, the students hopped on a bus for a guided tour of the city. DFC students we spoke to say it's made them more comfortable with the school and community as a whole.
I was doing an acting program, and he came into the room too, and he was saying some inspiring words.
It's very cool. This morning I got to learn how to program some microchips, and it had like LEDs, and it was really cool. I never got to do that before.
The Wake the Giant Music Festival goes tomorrow. Now moving over to weather, Fiona, with the Wake the Giant Music Festival tomorrow, hopefully the weather is a little nicer than what we saw today.
Yeah, it was very muggy. It was very gray. It was wet at times. Across the region, there is a system moving through, but it's not well organized. If we look at what's been going on for the last few hours, you can see some areas, that red, that yellow, that's more heavy rain, more active weather, but you can see they're very small little pockets through the region, some just west of Thunder Bay. So no surprise today, we had a lot of gray, a lot of humidity, and even some drizzle and showers this morning. For the most part, it was just mostly cloudy with very light winds from the south. We had a low of 12, a high of 20, although 1 hour ago, and just for 1 hour, we had a recorded humidex of 25, but then it dissipated, and all has to do with various variables. So it was kind of odd that we did have a humidex of 25, but just for 1 hour. Now, if we take a look at what's going on across the region, more gray skies to the west. Fort Frances has had brief periods of light rain. They're currently at a high of 16, so a little below normal. 15 in Kenora, 13 in Dryden. As you head up into Red Lake, they've had mostly cloudy skies for much of the day. They've had just another period of drizzle start just in the last hour. They're at 14. As we head eastward, they're down to 10 in Sioux Lookout, and then it warms up to 18 in Armstrong and Pickle Lake. So again, pockets of either rain or warmer air moving across. Greenstone has been seeing a lot of showers and drizzle today, gray skies. They're much cooler at 14, as is Marathon along the North Shore. And then Sault Ste. Marie also saw the humidex hover around 24, 25 earlier today. At this hour, it's drying out a little bit, and the humidex not a factor under mostly cloudy skies. Here in the city of Thunder Bay tonight, we'll drop down to 10 with another chance, just a chance, at an early evening shower, about 50-50, so you might want to flip a coin on that. But after that, partly cloudy skies. And as we head into Saturday, some parts of the region still seeing some showers, but Thunder Bay actually not looking too bad. It's going to be one of those days for Wake the Giant when people might want to keep something waterproof that they could just pop on briefly, because all in all, it's actually not looking too wet, and I'll have more details on that later on in the news hour.
Fingers crossed the rain just doesn't come at all.
Thanks, big fingers crossed.
Well, heading farther east, Hurricane Lee is barreling towards Canadian waters. We'll have more details when we return.
Nothing good can come from checking out the big waves and how strong the wind truly is.